Another recording.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're looking for our beginning lesson here. It's number 4. We're scrolling right now through our relationship intelligence student journal. And we're looking for number 4. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the story Charlotte's Web.
4 or 5, I can't remember.
Okay, I'll find it.
It's page.
And if you're not familiar with the story Charlotte's Web, I advise you to grab it and read it. Okay, what are we doing here? Let me find the table of contents. And read it to your children, read it to yourselves. It's such a great book. I read this in the 5th grade as an assignment. So I'm looking for core identity, habits and attitudes. Do you remember what
The reflection started on page 49.
Okay.
It was right before that.
See how you can hit the page number and bring it to 47. So let's see. Oh, here it talks about Charlotte's Web, luck, fate, or choice.
Mhm.
And this is about Wilbur the young pig. He has a brief experience with freedom. And so there's a nice story. They took some outtakes of the book. And then maybe the whole story there. That's amazing. Freedom to choose is part of being human, but many people give up their freedom for trivial reasons or just to fit in. So true. So is this the part that you did your work on, Linda?
Whole thing.
Okay, great. So questions for reflection. Wilbur the pig expressed contradictory, meaning different or opposite, feelings about his newfound freedom. In other words, he escaped, and I guess he got caught and put back. What were these feelings? What did you find?
It was either to stay in the bosom of the known or to go out on one's own. Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
I see in academia that even today, students are being encouraged to look at, entrepreneurship, which will give them more freedom.
Interesting. When I speak with students, because I talk about jobs and stuff like that too, I tell them, find a job that you would gladly do for free and go work for somebody else and find out all about it. And then set off your course for entrepreneurship, because some people just think about making the money. They don't really understand when you're running your own business, it's 7 days a week. It's not, oh, I'm going to go on vacations
Right.
on my yacht. Wonderful. So what was number 2 about?
Says, how is Wilbur's fear of the unknown world outside his pig pen similar to our own fears of the unknown? Related this to the fear of the unknown to stepping out of a group I was in. I truly had felt it was my fate to join that group, kind of pushed by my patriotic and religious ancestors, and I didn't even know I had at that time. But so as regards C, just wait. Can something be good if it's done too early before the right time? I.e., was staying in that organization bad when I should have left? And the answer is yes.
Yeah. How could people avoid that? How would they know?
I don't know. I think it's a lot of intuition, battling the fear.
Yeah.
Battling the fear.
If it's uncomfortable or you just don't feel, you feel like
Just
around.
weren't feeling right anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. If you feel like a round peg in a square hole, doesn't even mean the group is bad.
Right.
It's just not for you. That's very interesting. So, and I think that's a great point you're bringing out, because especially a lot of young people who don't have reference points like we do, they just think, well, it's just me. But maybe these are not the people. They're smoking dope or hanging out the corner. They're not doing homework. Maybe this isn't really your group. So what'd you put for number 3? What was that about?
That is, why did Wilbur give up his freedom? And how do we as human beings sometimes give up our own freedom to make decisions? There were times I'd given up my complete decision about where I was going to live, many other things. I think there's always a balance. And I think in the new place I'm at, that there is much more balance. And there's a lot more allowing of freedom of choice. And I think that's vitally important.
That's a great point. I mean, how can you take responsibility for your decisions if the decision is kind of taken out of your hands? Do you think a lot of young kids are actually shamed into making decisions or just to fit in?
I think less and less. I think the younger generation does not want to be told what to do. They kind of do want to make their own decisions. I just think they need maybe more information to make the right one.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree on that, because they ultimately have to, the decisions have to be theirs, but it has to be based upon some knowledge about the consequences, the long term. I think that's the biggest deal, is that long term impact. Yeah. So what was number 4 about?
Or as many people think that life is just happens. It's just something that happens to them, that they are passive victims of fate or beneficiaries of luck. I totally disagree with that. I do think that you have to choose your path a little bit. Like I'm saying, I didn't always get to choose, but when I could, I always relate an incident in college where I had gone to a party as a freshman and I wasn't raped, but I could have been. And I decided that I was no longer going to go to these parties.
Yeah.
I decided I could have one night, Friday or Saturday, to go like to a movie, and the other night would be studying. And I always went to the library.
Yeah. And you don't get a lot of support for that always either. But then later, where's the knuckleheads who were raised by wolves nowadays? You know, they're no place.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. So, yeah, going along with the crowd is chosen over doing what one's best. I know people always complain, you know, people with experience in life, oh, you're always saying the younger generation, but unfortunately, in this case, they're really unhappy, overdosing on drugs, you know, and they're doing drugs to be able to be with people. You know, they filled with so much anxiety and self-doubt because they never found out who they are as person. They always have to be in a group, not necessarily doing the right thing. So it's now it's really devastating. It's affecting a lot of people. So number 5, what was that about?
Some people have the attitude that we're all going to die, and use that way of thinking to justify living in destructive ways, such as alcohol, drugs, uncommitted sex, weapons, gangs. I do believe that all actions have consequences, and it kind of depends on whether you see life ending at death, i.e. a materialist, or you believe in life after death. It always astounds me how internal choices can be seen on the physical self. Like when you see a person, sometimes you just think they don't look too good. They look like they've really made some bad choices over their life, right?
Yeah.
It really is manifest in their physical self.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think about that all the time, Linda, because I was in a drug rehab center, and you know, I'd tell the guys at that time, you know, I was almost 70, and they'd be so shocked. And they'd say, how old do you think I am? I think I'm being kind. And I say 48, and they're like 35.
Right.
Because their skin is like leather from so much alcohol and drugs. And you can just see it in their face, in their 20s even. So it's
yeah, I mean, I was at the CVS picking up something for my hubby, and there was a lady right ahead of me, and she was real thin. She looked like a real typical drug person, right? And I heard her say her birth date. I mean, she looked a lot older than me, and she is at least 17 years younger than I am.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, I felt sorry.
And she probably feels 30 years older than you do. You know, it's like when we've lived our life good, as we age, we feel better than we did when we were younger, and a lot of things, except for a few aches and
Could
pains.
you
Yeah.
tell my knee that, please?
Yes. Well, I have a cure for that too. Omegas. I take
Oh.
1,000 omegas a day, and I have no pain in my knees. I have no cartilage in my right knee. And since I've been doing that, it really helps. So
What do you mean no cartilage?
there's just no cartilage. I had an x-ray done and they said, there's no cartilage. That's why your knee hurts.
I had an injury in college with my right knee. I was doing a pom-pom kick and it hurt it.
Ooh, that's
Okay,
what it always is.
want me to do the last one?
Just really quick, I just wanted to mention there's even an expression with young people. It's about 8 years old now, but it's called YOLO. They go YOLO, YOLO, which is an acronym for you only live once. And that was always their comeback. And I said, yeah, YOLO, YOLO, you only live once. So why not be the best you can be? And the room is nodding their heads. Why die over this stupid stuff? People don't care. They don't care if you die. So go ahead and give me the next one.
6, and the last one is, it's common for young people to feel sometimes that life is a bunch of have to go to school, have to go to do homework, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is everything you or I do is freely chosen, whether we admit to it ourselves or not. I don't totally agree with that. Sometimes societal pressures or providential pressures are so great, we really don't see alternatives. And then I went, probably what I can't say here. But at one point in my life, I had a real life vision that my mother would die in a car crash unless I made a certain choice. And then when I wanted to leave years later, she announced she had a tumor in her breast and I stayed again. So
yeah,
I felt that I didn't have a true choice.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't feel we have a free choice, but we did make a choice. And I totally understand what you're saying too, because we feel obligated, we feel responsible, different things like this, or coerced. I've worked in different places where that was the case. So,
I mean, how could I kill my mother?
Yeah, exactly.
I never told her either.
Yeah, it's sad, but that's excellent job that you did. That was real, especially because you were relating it to real life experiences. And a lot of our young people don't have real life experiences yet, or they did things exactly what you're talking about with a different scenario, but they didn't put it together the way you outlined it.
Mhm.
And I think that really helps them. So again, I'm highlighting the 51. We're on page 51. I don't know if you can see this. Then I put 91 and I can bounce there. So I look at the table of contents and then you can bounce through this.
I'm just seeing the real deal on love and relationship.
Oh, so you're not seeing the
No.
student journal. Okay, so I'm going to have to go around this, and I apologize for those who are watching. We're kind of at the mercy of our things, but for those who do have the relationship intelligence book, it was requested by one of our participants for me to show how to do lesson number 10. So I always do, how did I put the lesson together? Again, I never did this before. I never looked at it before. And I've been inundated with workshops. I was in a Zoom workshop, intense one, with only like little 10-minute breaks from 12:30 till almost 5 o'clock today. So it's kind of rough. So Anita Baker was very famous back in the day, and she was a poet, and also she did a lot of her own songs, and very, very famous. I'm probably not going to read everything, but this is somewhat of what she said, which a lot of, especially females, have found themselves in. She says, I can remember stories, those things my mother said. She told me fairy tales before I went to bed. She spoke of happy endings, then tucked me in real tight. She turned my nightlight on and kissed my face goodnight. My mind would be filled with visions of perfect paradise. She told me everything. She said, he'd be so nice. He'd ride up on his horse and take me away one night. I'd be so happy with him, and we'd ride clean out of the night. It's just like the Cinderella and all of these scenarios, right? She never said that we would curse, cry, and scream and lie. She never said that maybe someday he'd say goodbye. The story ends as stories do. Reality steps into view, no longer living life in paradise or fairy tales. She spoke about happy endings of stories, not like this. She said he'd slay all dragons, defeat the evil prince. She said he'd come to save me, swim through stormy seas. I'd understand the story. It would be good for me. You never came to save me. You let me stand alone, out in the wilderness, alone in the cold. You never came to save me. You let me stand alone, out in the wilderness, alone in the cold. I found no magic potion, no horse with wings to fly. I found the poison apple, my destiny to die. No royal kiss could save me, no magic spell to spin. My fantasy is over. My life must now begin. My story ends as stories do. Reality steps into view, no longer living life in paradise or fairy tales. This was common way back in the day. You know, I was born in the 50s, and people, you found the ideal one, you got married, got a house with a picket fence, had kids, and lived happily ever after. All the stories, they lived happily ever after, but nobody did stories and plays and movies about that ever after. How did they resolve conflict? How did they face difficulties? How did they live life? Like my daughter and son-in-law, there was a huge storm out here that was very unexpected, and it went from a rain to a waist steep flood in about 5 minutes. And outside their house is lined with all of their possessions from the first floor. Totally got rained out. They saved their cars. The people across the street, the cars were filled up to the driver's seat, so they're dead. My son-in-law jumped in the car, drove the cars on the grass. So that was about 6 inches higher. So at least it didn't reach the engine, but everything else is gone. It was like an ocean in their backyard from a creek. Never has been a flood, so they have no flood insurance. But it's how they're managing. And my text to them today, it's like, how you deal with a crisis is together as a couple is more important than the actual crisis. Nobody died, their house was not swept away. And it's really sad. They're, young married couple, and they prepare for everything and had asked neighbors before they moved in. It's not like they did this blindly. So, but they have their eyes wide open, but this will become a story for them, what they're going through. This will become part of their history, that in the future, people will say, that's amazing, and that it deepens their love. I mean, he was really the defender of the family. He ran around and put rags by the doors so that water couldn't come in, got the cars moved. They had electrical things they had to move up so they don't get electrocuted. So many things. How could she do this as a single mother? So it's really been a bonding process. And of course, the family's been going over there and helping them clean up, and the story's still beginning. So this number 10, lesson number 10 is on the actual name of it is stage of intimacy, attraction, and infatuation. And this is where a lot of I say young people, but it's adults as well. If young people get stuck in this infatuation stage where they feel strongly attracted to somebody, and then because they feel this attraction, they think they're having intimacy because they're thinking, I'm going to be in a lifelong committed relationship with this person. When they have sex and their brain is just high on drugs, phenylethylamine, norepinephrine, just natural hormones, when those drugs subside, as they always do, like maybe after 2 or 3 months, maybe the next day, they're left with reality. And that's what Anita Baker's poem was about too. But she had expected this fairy tale. She didn't know about the reality. It's better if you have the reality first and then turn it into a fairy tale later, based on a lifelong committed mutual relationship, where you really get to know people. So first of all, I go into the teacher's workbook and it's called like an outline, relationship intelligence student journal outline. And I had sent this to your copy, and then I read this and I find out what are the goals and objectives. So I understand, where I'm going, because, there's a lot of words in reading. So the first part is stages of intimacy. So I'll often ask a question, who here has ever heard of the word intimacy? I'm sure everybody here has heard of the word intimacy, but how do you really describe it? And when I see, especially for Valentine's Day, everything is about sexy lingerie, edible underwear, being sexy. And they think that's creating a feeling of intimacy. But actually, the greatest sense of intimacy anybody would ever experience, and I've talked to many people, is with all your clothes on. Being able to have a conversation, being vulnerable to another person, really talking to them about your life, listening to them about their life, getting to actually understand somebody. Those will be some of the greatest feelings of intimacy a lot of people will ever experience. So I'll have usually the students go on and read this. And, the problem too is people usually think intimacy means being sexual. It actually doesn't. But when people often substitute true closeness with sex, and actually the opposite happens. What I find, and the students bear it out for me when I give the high school classes, sometimes they're thinking about each other day and night. They can't, and I'll get to school at 7:30 in the morning. They're already lining the hallways, sitting close to each other in the basement, like it's almost a motel, And then once they have sex, it becomes the stake that actually drives them apart. That's when they start to argue, fight, probably cheat, things like this. And again, I have that high school senior says, yeah, Miss Linda, sometimes I'm thinking about this person day and night. I love being with them. But once we kick it, once we have sex, it's one and done. I don't have those feelings. And he felt bad as a male. Why do I have those feelings? And just think how much he's leading on this other person. I love you. You quiero mucho. I want to be with you forever. And they have sex. And also, when we program our brain, and that's what we're doing as young people, your brain is being developed and programmed by the thoughts and attitudes and actions that you do in your environment around you. If you're with this person, you have sex, you break up and find somebody else. You're with that person, have sex, you break up, find somebody else. You program yourself, your ability to love, with your genitals instead of with your brain and your heart. So even you're married, you did a public vow to somebody to spend the rest of your life in mourning, sickness, and in health till death do you part. But then you see somebody, that looks pretty good over there. So you go try it out. It weakens your bond. It's not like, oh, let me just, sow my wild seeds, and even it used to be sow your wild oats, back in the day they say, yeah, go out and sow your wild oats. It didn't mean, it meant join the military, go to college, work some years, sow your wild oats. It didn't mean digging up everybody's garden with your garden tool, so it's a totally different thing. Back in the day, a lot of people, they got married to the first person they had sex with, or they waited, and our marriages were a lot stronger, and I hear the sex is pretty good. So we ask people if they know what the word intimacy means. I'll look it up in the dictionary. It's the state of being familiar with somebody, something of a personal or private matter. It's not something you discuss with everybody. Synonyms, these are similar words: belonging, chumminess, being close, closeness, familiarity, that means knowing somebody, inseparability, nothing can take you apart, nearness, nothing about sex here, nothing about sex at all. And then, so I have the students go ahead and read the book, and it really talks about how nature is dealing with sex. It talks about genes, biologists. I just love the science and everything, because it takes relationships and it shows a lot of research behind so we can really make sense. Like, well, why? I used to be what we call a romance junkie. Somebody was just nice to me. I was so attracted to them and I had such little self-control. It was very difficult. It was really exactly like being a drug addict, because when I made the decision, okay, no sex outside of marriage, I was 25 at the time, you know, and it took me probably about almost 20 years to get unaddicted. I had self-control. I didn't mess around, but I sure did. I would just get overwhelmed with these feelings because that's what I had as a young person. So then there's the attraction, and being attracted to somebody is really a beautiful part of life. It's the fulfillment of our sexual being. But for something that is so natural, it's amazing how much confusion exists about what it really means to love and to be loved. Why, as the song describes, does love so often lead to multitudes of broken dreams and heartaches? And a lot of it's because it's not centered in reality. So I'm going to show you a clip in a minute, but a major reason for I'm reading here, a major reason for the misunderstanding of the stages of intimacy, Pat Love, and I knew her well. She was at a lot of our relationship conferences. They were international, quite frankly. She's a family therapist from Austin, Texas, who gave a keynote speech at the second annual Smart Marriage Conference in Washington, D.C. in 1998. I was there. Many found that her explanation about stages of love and intimacy clarified many issues that all of us struggle with. First, Dr. Love says there's a stage of attraction to somebody, often based upon how a person looks or acts. We have a workbook activity. When somebody's first attracted, what comes into being? It's usually physical. You're drawn to this person, or you're curious, or how they spoke. It's often based upon how they look or act. Somebody's personality, mannerisms, or voice may remind you of a relative, parent who is significant to you. You may not be conscious of it. Components of the attraction include physical appearance, expressing health, just like you see a big muscular body or a bikini body, it's showing health, strength, and fertility. Personality qualities such as a sense of humor, various kinds of intelligence, psychological issues, including unfinished businesses from childhood, social status, emotional chemistry, and actual chemistry involving DNA and pheromones. You don't smell the pheromones, but you sense the pheromones, and it can bring this natural attraction. But just because you feel highly attracted to somebody does not mean that's a good relationship match. Mother Nature wants us to meet, mate, and procreate. She does not know if this guy is a jerk or you're a jerkette, That's our homework as human beings. I mean, I have a lot of deer around here. They have mating season and that buck disappears. He has other girlfriends, and the doe doesn't care. Oh, good riddance, So pheromones are chemicals emitted by individuals to attract other members in the same species. Female moths produce sex pheromones. They tried for decades to get pheromones from humans and put it in perfume and aftershave lotion. I'm glad they were not successful. Wouldn't it be a shame if somebody was attracted to your perfume, so they just wanted, and you're thinking, oh, they really love me, And then after it wears off, or you got a different perfume, they're not attracted to you anymore. They don't want to be with you. They're not hovering around like a moth, And while human attraction is more complex, scientific research is showing that pheromones play a role in humans as well. So it shows more of these studies, which are really interesting and good for discussion. But I want to see if I can get this one video to play. Let's see, where is it? Hang on just a second. Okay, this is PowerPoint. And okay, this goes there. This goes there. That goes there. Let's see if I can find my, there we go. So can you see this on your screen, the real deal? You can see that? Okay, so we're going to play this. And I had sent to all of you this book. It's a handout. It's stapled. It's maybe 5 sheets. and it goes with this video. This video, I think, has 10 different topics, and then each one has a set of questions. So I'll go through the questions on this. So in the meanwhile, and all of these people you'll be listening to are relationship experts. They're relationship therapists, and they're going to be talking about tripping into infatuation, the real deal on love, relationships, and marriage.
But let me tell you what else it does. It lowers your defenses. You cannot see someone's faults. You cannot see the downside of a relationship when you're involved in this infatuation period. That's why I say you don't even know who you're in a relationship with until the infatuation period passes.
The con is that because they have brain chemicals soaring through their veins, they see this person as larger than life. It's delusional.
When you fall in love, you are in a delusional and illusional state. Okay? Illusional means you're not in touch with reality. Okay? You're way out there. And delusional means you create your own reality based upon a projection of who this person is. So of course they're going to be larger than life.
So instead of the person being hot-tempered and angry, they're passionate. And they reframe everything as wonderful, only to find out later when the chemicals wear off, he's a real mortal, and they have a lot of trouble with that.
Well, I was a football player when Bev and I met, and her friends were always talking about this guy who's out there on the field growling and spitting and throwing dirt in other people's faces.
Like saying he's a maniac, and I'm
You
saying,
know,
oh, he's passionate.
I'm just passionate about the game,
Yeah.
you know? And the problem is that as the relationship shifts then, you see, they go from being larger than life to somewhere in the netherworld, you know, and there's a pendulum swing there. And that's why I think you see in young relationships, it is so traumatizing for them, because the essence of it is a projection of all their hopes and dreams initially. And as they get into the relationship and they realize, well, he's not quite as tall as I thought he was, then they don't come back to a midpoint. They go from one extreme to the other. And now he's the worst person that they could ever walk on the face of the earth.
That feeling, that, you know, larger than life, wonderful feeling isn't really love. It's basically, we don't use the term falling in love anymore. With young people, we use the term tripping into infatuation. Because they're not falling, they're tripping. And they are
out.
tripping. And they are infatuated. They're not in love.
So it's important to know that this is a stage, and this too shall pass, and to not make any hasty decisions while you're under the influence. Because during this period of time, you can only see the positives. You can only see the bright side, and you have all this sexual energy. But if I act on that, it may be something that I regret later on.
Tripping into infatuation, caused by a chemical-based love cocktail in the brain, involves a projection of own needs, hopes, and dreams. It lowers your defenses for nature's purpose of meet, mate, and procreate. Unwise to make important decisions in this stage.
Having sex is definitely making a major decision.
Tripping into infatuation is a temporary high, often followed by disillusionment and conflict. Real love is not just based on attraction or infatuation. Real love is a decision to be loving, not arrogant or demanding. Real love, willing to sacrifice for each other. It takes work, often doing what you don't feel like doing to show concern and kindness to each other each day. Real love cares about the well-being of the other, not just your own desires. Real love gives first.
So that's just one part of this Real Deal DVD. What did you think about this? It was 4 minutes. Anybody? Richard Gosan, you have your hand up. Is that just an accident above your head?
Accident.
Okay. No
Okay,
problem.
I'm trying to figure out what your paper you're talking about, buddy.
Yeah, I'll resend it. I had sent it maybe 3 weeks ago or something, but it's called The Real Deal. Some things I think, I apologize, I sent too quickly, thinking you just, store it in a place, but I'll send it again tonight after this is over. And it's interesting because, you look at this DVD is also for sale in our store. And I would suggest you download it onto your laptop, make copies, whatever you have to do. So then you would ask people, what did they think of it? Sometimes nobody's hands go up. So Pat Love and Tom and Beverly Rogers, Tom and Beverly Rogers is the couple, right? They're married. They explained about tripping into infatuation. Some people don't realize, but back in the day, tripping meant you're high on drugs. That's why she says they're not falling in love, they're tripping. And believe me, they're tripping. It's these high risk, like Linda, it just broke my heart. Think about your college days, how people do those, frat parties and stuff. And they're just kind of an excuse. And they figure if you're at the party, that's what you're there for, to be used and tossed aside, And it basically, they say tripping into infatuation is caused by a chemically based love cocktail in your brain. It involves the projection of one's own needs, hopes, and dreams. So this person you don't even know, but you feel like, oh, is the knight on the shining armor, or she's just so wonderful, warm and friendly, and and it's a projection of something you want or need. You notice that in that person, even if they're not capable of delivering that. You lower your defenses for nature's purpose to meet, mate, and procreate. And so your defenses are down. It's like you are high on drugs. When you feel really attraction and infatuated with somebody, your brain is high on drugs. They can do no wrong. Your parents try to warn you, oh no, they're so nice. And at least the husband that was speaking, he knew he was a terrible young man. Now he's really nice. It's a temporary high, often followed with disillusionment and conflict. And this is the problem. They're high, so they're projecting, and now the drugs have worn off in your brain. And so they're not meeting your needs, and there's arguments and fighting. You're disillusioned. Like he said, you're delusional and illusional. Illusional means you're not in touch with reality. Everybody tells you this person is rotten to the core. You go, no, you just don't understand them. They're so sweet. They're so funny. Delusional, you're creating your own reality. Like kids are naming their babies and they haven't even had their first kiss yet. They're just so overwhelmed with feelings and emotions. Your brain is, especially with adolescents and teenagers, their brain is just being flooded with these pheromones. They're just high when they're walking around even. And I ask kids, do we make healthy decisions if we're high on drugs or drunk? And they go, no. Well, the same thing with attraction. It's unwise to make important decisions in this stage. Having sex, is that an important decision? Yeah, it's definitely a major decision. If you're not ready to become a parent at this time in your life, should you be doing something that could possibly bring a child in this world? And if you do feel you're ready to become a teenage parent, you should go speak to that girl's father or your parents, So now they're asking, is love the same as tripping into infatuation? What is the danger for a couple having sexual contact or intercourse in this stage? The problem is they bond. They may hate each other and fight, but why do they keep going back? Because of when they orgasm and they're looking at their love partner, they're actually bonding with them. So bonding can be healthy and unhealthy, just like when it comes to domestic violence, which typically is with dating people, not with married people now. They're being beaten. Guys are being beaten, girls are being beaten, and they say, well, why didn't you leave them? And that's one of the reasons why I had a firsthand experience of this with a relative, and the person had tried to kill them and they still wanted to go back with them. And it's just, now the police understand and they do restraining orders, and it's like getting off of drugs. You really need professional counseling. Unfortunately, it happens so frequently. You could be life and death and you got to wait 6 months to join a group. So why do you think this temporary high is often followed by conflict and disillusionment? Basically like that. what qualities of, or what qualities are some qualities of attraction? Do some people get fooled into feeling this is love? Yeah, somebody might have a beautiful body, or they smell really good. It's just amazing. They because they're in such a cloud, it kind of doesn't matter. Look at how people fall in love with movie stars. You've never met this person, never had a conversation with them. They don't have a single good thought in their head, but you want to love them and marry them and spend the rest of your life with them. And they're a hot mess, you know, and they will always be a hot mess. Totally, the sun has to shine on them 24/7. They have no room, you know, to share the spotlight. Then the next question, the last one, is what they dealt with at the end about real love. What are the qualities of real love or true love? Many people don't know. Real love is not just based on attraction or infatuation. In fact, they say if that's what happens, you know, catch your breath. Don't make any big decisions. Keep your distance till this wears off. It's a decision to be loving. It's not like, oh, I got carried away with all this, you know. It's a decision to be a loving person. It's not arrogant or demanding, willing to sacrifice and concern for another person. Now, you don't want to be stupid sacrifice, you know, where people are shaming you into doing things. Sacrifice means in a healthy way, It takes work, often doing what you don't feel like doing, like 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, diapering the baby. So you know, the husband can get some sleep, the wife can get some sleep, you know, things like this. Mowing the lawn so it looks respectable, you know, those are acts of love. It often takes doing what you don't feel like doing to show concern and kindness to each other each day. True love cares about the well-being of the other, not just one's own desires, and it gives first. You know, it's like before you can find the right one, you have to become the right one. That should be a full-time job. The kids relate to this. You know, when, you know, we really have to, you know, just the material stands on its own. We're in there learning just like they are, you know, but it's earth shattering. I'm telling, and adults take it even stronger. And in my conference today, one of the people that do a group, he said that he was worried about talking about certain things to 6th graders. They seem so young. And I said, yes, but we always want to wait until somebody's in trouble. They're addicted to drugs, they're a teenage parent, then we want to talk to them. It's much better to talk to people before they make these big decisions, because they're hearing about this. The average age of a person's first exposure to pornography is 9 years old. You want to wait till they get to be a porn addict, or do you want to warn them that this is not a healthy behavior for them? So it's kind of being like Paul Revere, you know, the redcoats are coming. So with attraction also, asking people what is a definition, getting them to think about these things, that before everything's in the realm of feelings, and feelings is reality, but you don't even know what those feelings are. Some of the definitions would be the action or power to draw forth. You feel like a magnet, you want to be with them. A force acting mutually between particles of matter, tending to draw them together and resisting their separation, always wanting to be with them, right? Something that attracts or is intended to attract people by appealing to their desires and tastes. And it might even be fantasy, but it's their desires and tastes. Like, it's amazing how people are just attracted to how somebody dresses, or they have big muscles, or they look good in a bathing suit. You know, it's just really amazing. So definition of infatuation is a feeling of foolish or obsessively strong love, admiration, or interest in somebody or something, strong and unreasoning attachment. So those are things, and again, synonyms for infatuation is crush, some people call it a mash, or a passion for somebody. So done with this one. So then, this is it. Yes. So slideshow. So do you see this slide here? It says part 4. Do you see a PowerPoint?
No,
You don't.
no, it's still the real deal.
Oh boy. Okay, let me see.
You
Let's
got to
see.
close it, I guess.
I'm thinking that too, yeah. Let's see, can I close it? Okay. Okay,
You see the X here?
yep. How's that?
And yeah, it's
Okay,
gone.
great.
It's gone.
Super duper. So now I see everybody's picture. Screen sharing has stopped as the shared window is closed. Okay, so now I'm going to share the screen again, and we're going to pick this one here. Share. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. So you can see this now?
Yeah.
Super duper. So then we go to slideshow, current slide. You won't have these problems when you're in a classroom with somebody. It's just because of the nature of this type of technology. So I just want to mention something what I did. And I don't know if you can see this, but anybody who's done PowerPoint, can you see where my cursor is on the left-hand bottom side there?
Yeah.
I made my own PowerPoint to match with the instructions on there. So if I slide all the way up, this is the original part 4 relationship intelligence. And if you slide down, it's got like 69 slides. Okay, the last one's that one, or this one, 68. And then so what I did is whenever it said, okay, use, and it will say in your instructions, use the relationship intelligence training part 4 slides, why attracted. So you go and you find that. So then you would like say you copy, see, I did a right hand on that, and then you'd hit copy, and then you go here and you would do paste. So in other words, I found this one, and then I went in between there, and then a right click, and it says paste, and I did paste. And I gotta get rid of that one because I don't need the duplicate. Okay, so I just want to mention I can go through that in an easier way, one-on-one or whatever you like. So then in the instructions, in the teacher's outline, which is the teacher's manual, it talks about how sexual attraction and union is the way most of the animal and plant world reproduce. And in the reading, it tells all this. This is kind of a background thing we're doing. So it talks about biology, and the first stage, attraction, involves chemicals in the body called pheromones, leading us to be attracted to the people we know very little about. So you can say these words to them before they start the reading. Then they do the reading. And when we got to the thing about Pat Love, I did a pause and we watched the video. We went through the questions, and now we're back to this. So we do some more reading, and then we go into part 4. Why are we attracted? Well, again, without reproducing, the human race would be extinct. It's chemically based pheromones. Does Mother Nature know if that person is a jerk or you're a jerkette? No, they don't. So, so basically the brain chemical dopamine, basically everything we do in life is reward. We get our degree, so we have the reward of fulfilling something, and we get more money, we have more job opportunities. I did my laundry, so I have everything clean and fresh. Things like this. We're all geared for reward. I ate that piece of cheesecake. It wasn't too big, so it's okay. And my reward was, oh, it really tastes good, So it's always, we're in this reward stage. The brain chemical gives a reward for exhilarating. That means very exciting, but sometimes unhealthy, destructive behaviors. Can you think of your brain? It wants you to do something, and you just know, you get excited thinking about it, but when you do it, then it really is not good. Can you think of anything? How about if you're overweight or you're trying to diet and your brain is telling you need that German chocolate cake, just a nice big piece, nobody's going to know you got this, and you can have a nice warm cup of coffee with it, it's an exhilarating feeling, but when you're done and you step on the scale or how you feel, it's a self-destructive behavior. So the brain chemical increases the behaviors to achieve the same good feelings. This is with drug addiction as well. The first high they get, smoking a joint, getting high off of alcohol, they just feel amazing oftentimes. Everybody metabolizes it different. You got the happy drunks, the angry drunks, you know, but you have this great feeling. So they want to do it again and again to get that same great feeling, and they will never have that same feeling. Then they're doing it more and more just to try to get the feeling they used to do with less. Now as an addict, like say with alcohol, they can't even get out of bed without shaking like this. They need to drink alcohol. And my drug addicts would tell me, the ones in my class, I don't drink to get high anymore. I drink just so I can function and go to work. So they can't function without that. So that's why the withdrawals are so hard. Your brain is trained to seek rewards, damaging your ability to bond in a committed relationship, treating others as an object in a game. It all comes about getting that person either to have sex with you, go out with you. But then once you got that prize, that's what it was all about. It wasn't about a relationship or genuinely caring about somebody. And you don't even realize that's what's happening. You usually blame the other person. But during your teen years, you've programmed your brain to always seek the thrill of a new relationship. And the same thing with pornography. It's all about the thrill of the chase, not actually the real work it takes to get in a relationship. So what justifies sex? We have these Coyote Ugly, American Pie, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I mean, where are they now? I don't think any of them, nope, I don't see any of them anymore. So what justifies sex? It's just having fun. And you ask teenagers, they don't say they're having sex. They say they're just having fun. Or they're just talking, but they're having sex. Hedonistic paradox. That was like the Rolling Stones. I can't get no satisfaction. I try and I try and I try and try. I just can't get no satisfaction. Yeah, that's why. Because you're just a crackhead, you know, whether you're romance junkie or it's drugs or alcohol, it's the same thing. You did it to your brain while you're young. I heard again, and I've heard this from pediatricians, our children's brains are developing. If you skip a stage, you skip it forever. It's not like you go back and then you relearn it and catch up. It doesn't happen. So like, especially for 2 years, kids in quarantine, they're locked up and their parents, who maybe some of them didn't even graduate from high school themselves, and they're teaching the kids. And my friend, she says, oh, I'm doing the Google class and I got 35 kids there. They're all there, 100% attendance, but I can tell which ones just turn it on and leave because they don't have their camera on. And then the class is over and she's got 12 kids still there. It'll sit there for 30 minutes. She doesn't know where they are. Parents probably don't know where they are. So it's going to be a big problem. I checked with an expert today. I asked that in the chat room and he nodded his head. Yes, you know, because they were talking about ACEs. That's adverse childhood experiences, you know, how they can affect somebody for life. Treating other people just as an object. Again, I say money is not the root of all bad things. It's actually self-centeredness. Ultimately empty because there's no emotional union. They say, I'm just not feeling you. Yeah, because you just don't have that ability to feel anybody. Then there's also sex for love. The problem is you could, if it's just for feelings of love, your emotions can change all the time. Like even the Titanic was so romantic and he gave up his life to help her. But say if they'd stay together, there's no movie that says what their happily ever after was about. You know, a lot of people have anxiety about the future. They think, oh, I love you, you love me, but they're thinking, are they really going to stay with me? Some people are addicted to love. They're romance junkies. It's all about getting the next fix. It ignores the work of loving another human being, dealing with differences and issues of commitment. Resolving those things, that's what actually helps people, you know, grow together and really love each other. Have any of you, like all of your adults, have you ever had an argument with the person that you're married to or a person you were seriously going out with? You had an argument, but through that argument, because you argued, they call it fair fighting, you actually became closer to each other. Have any of you ever experienced that? You have a disagreement, two different ways of dealing with things, but once you explained yourself, you go, oh man, that's really cool. That's really right. Yeah. I think most of us have had that, you know. So, and then some people just have sex for partnership or procreation. It's just making kids. I need somebody. And I know this in some of the neighborhoods I've worked, the men will get married so they have somebody to bear their children, clean the house, and have a regular sex partner while they're cheating and running around. I see this a lot. So they just have a partnership. They're living together, even married, but no intention of being single, you know, just with that one person. You know, they think of it's a natural outgrowth of their love, but they stay together just for the kids. They're not really working on their relationship. They have separate pleasures, emotional intimacy, separate procreation. If you separate pleasure and emotional intimacy, and procreation, you separate all three of those reasons, you lose all three. You lose all three. So it's like, it's very interesting if you just focus on one. So the best is an undivided love, having total possession of each other, an undivided commitment of body, heart, and future. It's not just one person, you know, lording it over somebody else. Pleasure, intimacy, procreation, and ownership are united only in marriage. With my body, I worship you. You know, it's not like I'm using your body for my orgasm. You know, it's a very different thing. So, so like when they're talking about the second stage of intimacy, infatuation, you are more than attracted, you're obsessed. So thoughts of your beloved fill your mind, you feel the joy of falling in love, you think you're on cloud 9, but basically, the trouble is when you fall in love this way, you're on drugs, natural amphetamines that give you a feeling of elation. Like when they're first in love, they don't need to sleep, they don't need to eat, they just want to be with each other or talk with each other. And gives you a feeling of elation as well as higher levels of testosterone, increasing sexual desire. How good is your judgment when you're on drug-induced intoxication? Not so good. Questions to think about when you're infatuated. Oh, so it's on page 91. I missed that. But anyway, bonding hormones, which is oxytocin in a woman, vasopressin in a man, cause feelings of attachment when you have sexual intimacy. But if you do that with somebody who's not committed to you and they just leave you afterwards, you experience a mini divorce. So when a woman orgasms or experience sexual pleasure, she releases oxytocin in the brain. It gives her a feeling of pleasurable feeling and well-being. Vasopressin is released in the man. It just makes him feel at his absolute best. And what women don't realize is when their husband falls asleep after sex, they get annoyed because, I want to talk, because oxytocin is the cuddle hormone. You want to cuddle and you want to talk and stuff. And then he's snoring. If he's snoring, that's a great compliment. That means he is really so relaxed and so pleased and so, you know what I mean? So sometimes they wake up again after 5 minutes, you know, but it's not a being disrespectful. You know, it's good to respect our differences. Good to respect our differences. Also, can somebody love you if they don't care about your future? Oh, baby, you know, if you get pregnant, don't worry, I'll always be there for you. Yeah, right. Can somebody love you if they don't care about their own future? I was reflecting today how often I heard guys in their mid-20s say, yeah, I had to get married. She got pregnant. Yeah, she got pregnant all by herself. You had nothing to do with it. She got pregnant. We had to get married. And they would always tell that to women as a way to get to go out with women while they're married, you know? And it's just really a shame, you know, and you probably said, I love you so much. You know, I really want you, you know, we're going to make love. I'll marry you. Well, you know, did all these things. It didn't just happen, you know, you had something to do with it. So there's a lot of pros and cons about sexual bonding. So, if somebody just falls in love this way, they're high on drugs, natural amphetamines. Oh, okay. So it's both. So physical and sexual touch leads to feelings of closeness and attachment. I know a lot of people freak out. I know I've seen it in the religious Jews. I call them religious. I don't know what else to call them, but they're very ultra religious Jews, you know, the ones that walk everywhere and, you know, for the Sabbath and stuff. And the Muslims, it's like you have to have this 18-inch barrier around you. There's like I see in the schools, the guys are hanging on the girls are rubbing up against the guys. This physical contact develops feelings of closeness and attachment that aren't really there. It's just you're creating these feelings, and then you go, "How you doing?" You know, before they were just a friend and stuff. So it's very important, not like even myself, because I was a romance junkie. I remember, how old was I? Maybe 27 or something. And there was this guy, he was fresh from Italy, such a handsome guy. And I just loved how he was just a good person, you know, good character. I was really attracted to that in him. And we were, you know, there was a buffet and my arm just barely touched his arm. And woo, I felt I wanted to have this person. You know, I had to leave the room and get my composure. That's how bad I was. You know, I had badly trained my brain. So I really learned. And then sometimes I think, well, I'm not having sex with anybody. I'm not cheating on my husband. I'm just thinking that's not good either. Because all behavior begins with thinking. You know, the thoughts you have will turn into a behavior. So it becomes an obsession. So it's just interesting. So the other person may not feel the same way and they just leave. It's like a mini divorce. You know, you see people dating and one person is thinking, wow, this is really a great person. The other person's thinking, oh, they're okay. But then they see this other person is so serious and, you know, texting and chatting all the time. And, you know, they feel like, oh, I need my space, you know. And when they stop calling them, even though they might have only been dating a few weeks, it's like a mini divorce with this sexual bonding. They, you know, people, like I'm saying, they just call sex is having fun. Another possibility is the person doesn't leave. They don't love you. They don't leave. They keep abusing you. They treat you badly, but you still feel attached. You just can't leave. Your friends are all telling you. There's a whole process there. So there's sex and brain conditioning. Constant viewing of anything or anybody during a sexual experience creates a sexual desire for that object or person. Now, this is actually a quote from part 5, which talks about sexual addiction with porn. So if you're constantly viewing anything or anybody during a sexual experience, it creates a sexual desire for that object or person. So early sexual experiences are imprinted on the brain. And then they keep repeating the same scenario, thinking it's going to be different this time. Then we have lighter fluid love. I'm really going through this kind of quickly, believe it or not. Have a big inaccurate view of the other. My boss, he always threw a big barbecue for all of us in the summer. He'd wear his funny Bermuda shorts with his skinny legs, and he'd put a mountain of charcoal and just a whole bottle of lighter fluid, and he'd stand 10 feet away and says, we're going to cook 100 burgers today. And then he'd flip the match and, oh my gosh, just an inferno of heat. I mean, anybody within 10 feet could feel the warmth. It was amazing. And 2 minutes later, it'd be colder than anything. It just was a big flash, but there was nothing there to smolder and keep the charcoal going. So lighter fluid love starts very quickly and ends just as abruptly. We have an inaccurate view of the other. We're focused on external traits. It's temporary. It's needy and desperate. I got to be with this person. Your other interests suffer. You're not doing your homework. You're not focusing on your job. You're not focusing on your family or your other relationships. It's just you and this other person. It becomes demanding and impatient. Why aren't you calling me? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't we going out? It can lead in bad directions. Arguing, fighting, domestic violence, abuse. So sex can become, I'd say more often than not, in an uncommitted, non-married relationship, sex becomes a substitute for real intimacy. Look at all the people say marriage is just a piece of paper. They live together. Are they with each other still? You might find 1 out of 50,000. Oh yeah, we've lived with each other for 50 years. We never got married. Okay, one. You don't see it for all the people that were living together like in the 70s and 80s. So basically that's how that goes. So then activities that we have that's in the student journal, along with that reading that I did, is I lost my virginity about 4 months ago. This is a real letter written by a teenager and given to us. And it's so amazing. I would say it's just too common. And then this other boy, he wanted to save himself till marriage, but the opportunity came and this young, pretty girl offered to have sex with him. He said, sure, let's give this a try. And it was good, but then she just walked out. And then he became a secondary virgin. He started focusing on his sports and school and getting better grades at college. And he just realized, no, that's really just not for me. So we do talk about secondary virgin, how people can stop having sex or drugs and all those things and start, living life in a real way, so it's, so it'd be those workshops, those exercises. And there is something in your script that says showing Jenny's Choice, which used to be really great. Some teenagers made that, but it's I don't think it's available anymore. So we would show the real deal. And basically that's it. So also, again, anytime you run into words that either you don't know the clear meaning as it relates to our program, or you don't think they will, I would definitely say get a simple definition and have it in your hip pocket. If somebody asks, to say, I'm glad you asked, or I've handed dictionaries. Every classroom has dictionaries. I'll say, here's how you spell this word. Can you look this up for me? And I'll have them look it up in the dictionary. I used to carry a little pocket dictionary, but so it's about that time. Do we have any questions? Is Carol here tonight? Bergie, is Carol here tonight?
Carol,
Yeah,
I haven't seen her. No,
so screen sharing stopped.
she's not here today.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, I just didn't hear from her. I hope everything's okay. So when I do screen sharing like this shows Zoom here, you're in a meeting, and it shows us. Yeah. So, yeah. So basically that's it. So I hope, I know, instead of just doing the class, I like to always show you the process I went through to put things together. And again, it is a little more difficult because we're doing it in this way rather than me being in the classroom. The classroom being with you, it's really much easier for me, for sure. Do you have any questions or anything like that? Sharon, did you wanted to share something with us?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't give my presentation. Sorry to everyone.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I wasn't so prepared as much as I wanted to be today, and I think it just doesn't give it its due justice the way Linda gives all her programs. So I felt it's better Linda talks because she has the expertise, right?
Yeah.
But I did want to share what I did. So I've been reaching out to churches, to their youth ministry.
Cool.
And yeah, so still waiting, I keep trying to be in touch with them, etc. One is definitely very excited. She wants to know when we can start right away, and I'm like, well, I've got to get the material. So people are really excited out there, and so I thought I'd just challenge myself and just go ask some questions from, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to take this journal in the relationships intelligence student workbook with me. I'm going to go to the Walmart and I'm going to ask a couple that doesn't mind answering some questions. And I did the male female lesson number 8.
Wow.
And so I basically gave him a little rundown on, women are from men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
I love
And
that guy, John Gray.
yeah. So I was asking them the questions, and I asked each. It was a husband and wife, and they were relatively new in their relationship, I guess, in their marriage. So I'm going to give them. So I gave them the question of thinking about the male and female, and the first question is male and female differences can be enjoyed, but they also can lead to miscommunication and even resentment if not treated in a good way. What are some areas, that you have noticed where guys and girls can misunderstand and hurt each other? And this was the response. They said, I do agree that both men and women have different communications. One of them was answering. They have different styles, and especially men tend to focus more on, I want to fix the problem for you, honey, and accomplish something, where women are more like focused on the caring, and they like relationships, and they like to go over to their women friends' homes and talk to each other and care about each other, basically. So number 2 was learning to appreciate positive qualities of others, and an important skill to develop in life. So write down 5 non-physical qualities of the opposite sex that you admire with examples from your own family or others. This was a little bit different. Okay. So basically, I'll say what he said first. I told him they didn't have to have 5 exactly each. I just said 3 and 2 or something, right? So he said she was very conscientious for him, very mentally strong and caring. And I mean, that's what he said. And she said that he was very steadfast and he never gives up when he starts a project. And he turned to her and he had this instant pleasing face, and he was like, really? And he was like just so hyped up from it.
Isn't it amazing? Men need compliments too. They need to feel respected and they need to feel loved, and mostly respect. That is love for most men, and good food.
I think so. I mean, that was really a true respectful
Wow.
basically statement that she was stating out loud, And then she also says he likes to be so helpful, and he was just like blushing almost.
Isn't that amazing?
Anyway,
was this boyfriend girlfriend? Was this boyfriend girlfriend?
No,
or?
they were actually husband and wife,
Really?
Yeah, so I mean, I could go on and on about the answers, but and we did another one as well, the rest of the whole.
Cool.
Yeah, do you want to hear it? I don't know. Do we have enough time?
Give me one more. Okay,
I give you one more. So so the third one was, are there some things you wish the opposite sex understood about your gender? And he said when he needs some quiet time alone and he wants that respect and privacy. And she said when she's on her monthly cycle or period.
Yes. We're out of our mind.
Yes.
It's not my fault.
Exactly. So, I mean, they went through these answers and basically were very strong and very supportive of each other in the end.
Wow.
And as they were walking off, and I said, thank you for answering these questions. It has been so inspiring to hear your answers. And you might even consider talking more after, you're in the car together. And they said, we certainly will.
It might be good, a little handout, like table topics or something. You could Google something, table topics, to get to know somebody. I've done that before, and it'd be nice. Well, here's a sheet. There's something, because especially because they can communicate, which is nice.
Yes. Exactly. That sounds like a great idea. And maybe something that we could present, or I could present, yeah, the table topics that you were, that are in the
Yes,
journal, basically,
yes.
you mean? Yeah, I really like those. And
You
yeah.
could give the table topic thing,
Mm,
but you could also give the sheet of stuff that, you know, I said our topics with
mhm.
your name, your contact information, like instead of a
Yeah,
business card. That
sounds
way
good.
they'll know what that is and maybe could get another practice gig or something. Like I said, when I did churches, I said, just give me, because it's hard for me to ask for money.
Yeah,
Usually people get $75 an hour, you know, but I
right.
just say, just give me a love offering. I would get $100, $200, you know, so.
Yeah, maybe we could do like a youth night where it's the older youth or something for table topics so that they can
Yeah,
really look at
yeah.
the more
We
deeper.
have, there's in your big relationship book that's very thin, there's an interview for marriage, and it doesn't have to
That's
be two
that's
people who would be married to each other. It's just two
right.
people. It can be two girls, two guys, it doesn't
Interviewing from
matter.
okay,
Yeah, and
page number 13.
yes, thank
Yeah.
you. And then you're interviewing for marriage, and I always
What
say
is
write it
marriage?
down in pencil, but it's nice because it gets people to think, and you're doing it with another person, so you're a little more serious about it. But
Yeah,
you discuss it. You don't even have to write it down, but that's kind of interesting.
I like that idea. We
See,
could
there's
just
so many
copy
things.
this page and just have that as something
Yeah,
that could actually be a little class. I mean, on its own.
yeah. It's see, look at the
Mm,
creativity. You're sticking completely with the program, but it's working for you. You know,
yes.
it's like you're using what feels good to you, and then you're doing it that way, you know. So it's so interesting. It's you know, it's just like when people do lectures on streets and stuff with whiteboards and things, you know, it's circles and stuff, you know. It's kind of like that, but you're doing your own thing. And like again, when there's lots of not workshops, what do you say, conferences that go on in town, health fairs, career fairs, whatever. And it's always free to do it. And they have the tables there. Just set up your stuff. We have a big board that we made, and it showed Black kids in whiteface. The Black kids love it because usually it's white people dressed up with blackface. You know, there's Black kids with whiteface, and they're doing a routine. They were a theater group. They were very young, 7th graders, and they were terrific. And people just love to see that. But and our newsletter and stuff like that, just having that out. You could do a whole class just on our newsletter, you know,
Absolutely.
having people read it, write down, what do you think about this? Because it's very informative, you know, so it's, well, that's a great report, Sharon, and you and Linda did a great job tonight. I'm really, because believe me, I really understand. This is like shooting in the dark, you know, and you guys are really catching it and making it your own. And that's really amazing. You know, you want to stick with the research. We have to have fidelity to the program, but you make it your own. That's what I did. You know, I had to gear it for my urban kids, you know, so I had to kind of remake myself. And because, you know, the kids need to feel they can relate to us, and giving them respect is the #1 way, you know. So I'm going to let people go. I know it's been a long day for everybody. It's 8:21. Next week is our last day. I think I'm going to try to go through part 5, which talks about emotional baggage, domestic violence, and addiction to porn. And I'll go through it really quickly to have a familiarity. I don't think I did part 5 yet because I just discovered it on our list. And again, the real deal, I want to tell you, this is, I mean, they might even have a YouTube about it. If you go Real Deal on love, relationships, and marriage on YouTube, you might find it there. But it's fascinating. I will, after we sign off, I will resend the question sheet for that. And yeah, and so just whenever I did mail out the 2 books to everybody. Linda Flores, I did mail out to Pastor Hancock as well, and some extra things for her. And
Thank you.
no, you bet, sure, of course. And then just let me know if you receive it, because if you don't, then I want to track it and stuff. So,
Yes, I did receive the books. Thank you so much.
terrific. You're welcome. It's interesting. Read it, on the bus or whatever, whenever you can. And I
Okay.
just really want to thank all of you and thank Bergie. Let's give Bergie a great big hand. Yay, Bergie, keeping
Thank
us
you.
together, doing attendance and everything. So I'm going to let you go. Bergie's going to do our send off. Thank you again,
Okay.
everybody. Super
Thank
job.
you. Good night.
Super.
Good night. Thank you.